Hello and
Now I
welcome to episode 3 of Mind Adventures Theatre presents Theatre in the Apocalypse. And our guest today is Professor Saumya Liyanage. Saumya Liyanage is an actor and an academic, and he's tremendously good at both things. He is currently the Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies at the University of Visual and Performing Arts. Saumya, thank you so much for being with us today.
thanks for having me here.
We're going to have a great time. I can feel it. So,
Yeah.
Saumya has been in theatre and television and film for something like 30 years. Did you perform a lot as a child, Saumya? Because I'm thinking 30 years, you would have been like in your early 20s getting into it. But did you grow up performing?
Yeah, I had Tracy. Thank you. First of all, I would really like to thank you, and as well as Lihan, who have been, running around to fix all these things technically and humanly. And thanks for having me here. And yes, I had a kind of paternal connection to theater because my father, most of the people know that my father was a theater writer and a director in 1960s, and he started working in 1960s, and he has been working as a theater writer and a director, but later he became a kind of actor in television as well as in films. So I was brought up within that kind of environment. So I saw a lot of people coming and discussing about theater. I saw lots of books at my home, in my early childhood.
So
That's
you
how
grew
I
up just
was
surrounded.
inspired. That's how I was inspired in my career. But I never acted as a child actor, because I started acting when I was in the university. So yeah, that was my first encounter with a with a solid audience. So until that time, I was very much shy, and I was hiding all the time. I was not an actor and at all. So I wanted to actually I wanted to be a writer, not an actor
Right.
at that time.
And you
So
have
I was.
actually written some screenplays and things, haven't you?
Yes, I have done very, very little stuff as well in terms of writing, creative writing.
Yeah.
Because early I did some work with Rajitha Dissanayake, one of our playwrights. And because at the time I was at the university, my friend Piyal Karivasam and Vimukti Jayasundara and myself, we started writing for the radio actually. So we have
Okay.
produced some plays. I have translated some Indian short stories into Sinhala and adapted them in as short plays for the radio, and I
Right.
I performed in those plays as well. So that's how we started.
Okay. Right.
Yes.
So as we go along, I'm still sort of getting through my introduction of you, Saumya.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously
It
I
hasn't
can't.
finished yet.
No, it's not finished. There's so
Mm.
much. I mean, the thing is, I'm not going to try and list all the achievements because,
Yeah.
we'll run out of time and then we'll have to have another
Exactly.
interview about theatre in the time of COVID. But
Definitely.
I'm just going to very briefly, for people who aren't that familiar with you, I'm just going to briefly list out a few things. So
Yeah.
Saumya is a beloved star of the stage and screen here in Sri Lanka. He's been in award-winning films like Sulanga and Apinasa, Me Mage Sandai, sorry, Sulanga, in English that'd be Forsaken Land and This Is My Moon. And then also Vasanto Obesekara's Outsider. I mean, he's had a very long, if you have been with us right throughout, he's had a very long relationship with some of the best and brightest minds in theatre and in film, writers and directors like Vimukti Jayasundara or Vasanto Besekara or Rajitha Dissanayake, Prasanna Vitanage, Asoka Handagama, Indika Ferdinando. So, have you ever been directed by a woman?
Yes.
Who was that?
Nilupati Bell. Nilofer Dimel.
Oh, wow. Oh, fabulous. Was that in university?
Yes, actually, I was studying in the second year, and I was invited to play a small character. At that time, she was producing a play written by Nigerian playwright called Femi Osofisan,
Mm-hmm.
and Femi Osofisan came to Sri Lanka, and both Femi Osofisan as well as Professor Nelufa Dimel directed that play, Nkrumah
Yeah,
Afrikani. So I
that's
acted in
right.
that. Yes,
Okay,
that
okay.
was, that was one of my beginnings.
Right. Um, so as not just a teacher, but as an artist yourself, through your experience of teaching and working at the University of Visual and Performing Arts, which I'm going to call UVPA from now on,
Yeah.
do you think there are more women? I know they emerge as actors, but are there more women emerging as playwrights and as directors?
Yes, Tracy. This is the kind of emerging phenomena even at the university level, because if you go to the university in our batches, you would see we the majority is women actually, young girls. They are the people who
Right,
are studying theater, dance, as well as visual arts. Even in our
right.
three faculties, we have three faculties at the university and four
Hmm.
with five faculty. We are currently working as the dean, where we do a lot
Right.
of postgraduate studies, faculty of
Hmm.
graduate studies. But other three faculties we have visual arts, music, as well as dance and drama. The
Yeah,
majority is uh, strongly women actually. So
that's really, really
yeah,
heartening to know.
no, yeah. So the productions that we have done so far for the last 10, 10, 15 years at the university, um, there are lots of writers as well as directors emerged through those final year productions. They are
Yeah,
uh, they are young, yeah, they were young, uh, very enthusiastic young female writers and directors. So, but there's a tragic or the pathetic situation behind that as well. But even though they are flourishing as young, enthusiastic, young, energetic writers, women writers, female writers, and directors. But we haven't seen that their careers as writers and directors are very much stable in the society. I remember a few years back we produced a play based on one of our uh, political leaders lived many years back, Rohana Vijayaveera. Mr. Rohana
oh,
Vijayaveera's, we produced that play based on his life and death. We called the play, we titled it as Mr. W. Hevat Athanayakage Avasan Davas Kiyala. Or
oh,
the last days of Mr. Athanayaka, or Mr. W. Anyway, this play, one of our major writers was a female writer,
right.
and the lead role was played by the Mr. Vijayveera's wife's role was played by one of our leading actresses at the
Okay,
department.
right.
But recently, I got to know that that actress was married, and now she is living far away from Colombo, and she hasn't got any dynamic or organic relationship with theater at the moment. But she's playing at the home theater at the moment.
Oh, home theater. Um,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
that's something that I would like to come to in a little bit, Soumya. This thing that theater is seen as something like you'll do it up to school and you'll have fun, but
yeah,
after that you kind of abandon it.
yeah,
Um, and that's something I want to come to in the future.
yeah,
But I want to go back for a minute to, I mean, your engagement specifically with theater. It has always been very socially conscious, and that's very evident from your body of work. And I think most recently, um, actually not even that recently, in 2008, You were in Indica Ferdinando's very visionary work, Colombo, Colombo.
Yeah.
And then also, and this is more recent, The Irresistible Rise of Mr. Sinyo.
Yeah.
And then you've also been in Rajitha Dissanayaka's Aapasu Harannabe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is a line in it, Saumya, which is written by the gentleman who reviewed the play, and his name is Ranga Chandraratna.
Yeah.
And this particular line really struck me, and he's writing about the play. And he says, "It is now clear beyond doubt that those who are opposing the war will eventually be labeled as traitors to the nation, and thus silences the dissent not only against war, but also against corruption and malpractice in society." So, I mean, I'm very sorry to say I didn't see that particular
Yeah.
play,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it sounds like it would have had quite an impact. So, can you just talk a little bit about what it was like working on that play, working with Rajitha? What was
Yeah.
the audience reaction?
Yeah. Actually, in 2010, I had to go to Australia to do my PhD study, and so during that time, I was playing that particular main role in that play, Akasu Haranabe, or No Return, written and
Yeah,
directed by Rajitha Disanayak. And I have been working with Rajitha, for a long time, because when Rajesh started as a playwright and a director, we all were studying at the universities. He was from University of Colombo, and I was from Kelaniya University,
yeah,
and so we started working as young theatre activists. So, so I have been working with him for a while, and I could understand his. I mean, I had a very strong feeling of his style and the way that he wants to explore some of the social issues and problems pertaining to youth and other social phenomena. So this particular play, Arthur Harrenby, was also very much a politically motivated play written
mm,
by himself, and at the time, then that main character, he actually is a young scholar who comes from after finishing his studies from the USA. He comes to Sri Lanka and he holds the top one of the top positions in the government as a media controller. And finally, he confronts lots of problems, political as well as personal, at home as well as at office. And he finally, um, he becomes a tragic hero finally. So
right,
the crisis of contemporary media, the politics, as well as the intervention of uh, politics in the media and the controlling of media. Uh, those are those were the themes that Prajita wanted to explore,
right,
and how these things are affecting, to our lives as well. So now so in 2015, I came back from Australia. I played that character many years back. Actually, after coming back from Melbourne in 2015, and then
yeah,
I started working as again as an academic at the university. Then
mm,
I started experiencing all these things the particular character experience in that particular play in my real life, actually.
right, yes,
So now,
actually,
yeah. So it's a very unique thing. So even recently, I met Rajit and I told him that I'm experiencing every bit of thing that I played in that character in my real life now. Not only in terms of
Saumya,
media, yeah, it is
yeah,
not just
I mean,
media, but the how power functions even within the university, how macro political, you know, games are functioning in the higher education sector and in the society, how we are dealing with all these politics.
I was going to say that play sounds absolutely prophetic. Because again, and I just happened to read that review today. And
Yeah,
this is another thing that the writer is saying when he's describing the play. And he's saying the dominant political discourse is in favor of engineered patriotism, which
mm,
will cover up the sins committed by top brass and the crafty politicians, while the ordinary citizens and soldiers will face the brunt of war directly and indirectly. And, this was a play written in 2008. I'm reading that today, and I read it very shortly, and it stuck with me really very much because I also read the latest extraordinary government gazette today, Saumya.
yeah,
And it's a presidential directive that
yes,
informs us of a committee that is made up of mainly military personnel who are now going to be responsible for creating what they call a disciplined, virtuous, and lawful society. And so reading, about this play and reading this gazette, I mean, it's a very extraordinary gazette in that
yeah,
sense. It really made me feel like what a prophetic play this is. Everything that he seems to have spoken about, what now, 12 years ago, we're
yeah,
just seeing it happen.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, yeah. I with this COVID situation, as well as how the power structures are trying to deal with these issues, um, brings us a lot of other socio-political and judicial problems as well. So I published an article last month, and in that
mhm,
article, actually, I want to discuss about this matter, mainly emphasizing how the tyrannical, um, emergence, or that how this tyranny, emerges uh, through this type of crisis, mainly because our focus
yeah,
and we are ingrained into a kind of so-called natural disaster or natural phenomena, but at the same time it is not that natural, because it is, this disease is very much political and
yes.
social. It is not mere natural catastrophe at all. So it is what I want to emphasize is there's nothing natural. So all are very much, it is political. This is a created phenomenon throughout the history, and we are
I
confronting with
really,
all this. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I was going to say I agree, and I really like that phrase actually, engineered patriotism. I mean, here we are
exactly.
now on top of everything else. We're locked down, and it's not even just lockdown, it's curfew.
Yeah,
So many people, and I'm not just talking about the creative industries, just everybody everywhere. Uh, People have lost their jobs and home
yeah,
security, the very real struggle uh, to keep a roof over your head and to feed your family. In the midst of all that, now we have to deal with people and telling us how to be good, which,
yeah.
and
Disciplined
we have no
bodies,
parliament.
disciplined bodies.
Parliament is not
Actually,
convened.
no, no, because even in the society is of the view that we don't need that kind of structures to govern a country. So that is
Yeah,
the sentiment that has been created throughout this time. So now, yeah, so there are lots of methodologies producing through media as well as in other means, and we are compelled to believe lots of these myths or methodologies developed through these power structures. So because of that, now we are very much compelled, and we are very disciplined human beings, and
Yes. And
yeah,
we'll be
so we
learning
are
a lot more about discipline and virtue very
exactly.
shortly.
Yeah, for
Mm,
instance, even recently, I know that, for instance, if I want to, I have heard a lot about this matter. For instance, when I'm talking with some of the parents at schools, they are always looking for their kids to be disciplined. So they try to, they don't know the meaning of discipline, but they are looking for good headmasters who can
yes.
discipline their kids. So this is the sentiment, even at larger scale. This is the sentiment as a society that we have. So we want someone to come and discipline us because we are
Yes.
one rich and we are cultured people. So we want someone. We want, we are pleading all the time to, to the God to have someone from somewhere to come and please discipline us because we are not very much disciplined nation. This is what
Yeah.
we are trying to convey, and this is terrible. Yeah, I mean, we don't know the idea of discipline or why we need discipline. Whose discipline? Who is going to discipline us? What is the
Yes.
meaning of discipline? I mean,
It's a
this is a very bizarre term.
Yes, it is discipline and virtue, and the thing is, it's obedience is
Exactly.
sort of mistaken for respect, and someone who asks a question is a bad person. You're not just sitting and taking it in. Asking a question means you're a troublemaker. And it
Troublemaker.
seems to me that in terms of actual learning, those are issues we really have to deal with.
Exactly.
Um, I mean, we're
Now,
in
Tracy,
strange times.
yeah, and at the same time, because your topic is our topic is the theater in the apocalypse.
Hmm.
A very good time for us to reflect and see what is happening in the theater, and it's a very vital question at the moment. Is
Yeah,
very vital and very valid, and so I have a different feeling about it, different interpretation to it, because
I'm very interested to hear that.
yeah, because now when we say theater, the term theater connotates lots of different things to different people. Because generally, in general, actually, when I say theater, a lot of people imagine or or they have their own conceptions about theater, and we think theater means a particular structure where people and actors gather together, and there's a separation between actors and uh, audience. So generally, to some people, theater means uh, Lionel Went or Lumbini theater, or theater means uh, Punchi Moralle theater.
Mm,
But the term theater has so many other connotations, and it's a very complex and historical term as well. So
yeah,
when we say theater in the apocalypse, um, to me, actually, there's a small lament. Or we as theater artists, we are in a kind of sad situation, lamenting that theater is not going to be enlivened in the future because of this pandemic crisis. But theater has been there in the history of humankind, throughout the history,
yep.
amidst all these crises, facing
Mm,
up and down, going through so many roller coasters,
plagues and
plagues,
mm,
and wars, famine, etc. But theater, somehow or other, theater has been able to, uh, you know, um, able to able to survive.
weather most storms. Yes.
Exactly. But but the problem is, it is not. the theater that we, conceptualize all the time. Theater means theater functions as well as theater endeavors in different forms and different ways to different people, and it has different purposes as well. So nowadays, what we are talking about is just this bourgeois theater. This, you know, this that is the problem is, yes, this bourgeois theater cannot be functioned because of this lockdown, because of
Okay.
these restrictions or government restrictions. So this middle class theater is at a stake at the moment. That's true. Middle class entertainment is at a stake at the moment, but that doesn't mean that theater is over or theater is
No, no,
going to
no.
be surviving. Theater will be surviving. Theater will be surviving. But this, if I have little time, I will elaborate it with another example. That this is a kind of extreme example that I am going to share with you, Tracy. But it is very much um, conceptual rather than practical. But theater can be performed in that way as well. For instance, as you know, one of the greatest theater um, writers and directors, Jerzy Grotowski from Poland,
Mm.
um, he coined a term called para theater. That means theater beyond theater. So theater beyond theater, or the para theater, in this conception, he wanted to eliminate this bourgeois audience from this particular engagement with the performance. So for him, ultimately, theater is something that you can use to to explore uh, your own self. You know, if I summarize his approach,
Mm. Yes.
so it's a self exploratory journey rather than showing and putting a play at Lionel Bent tonight and selling some tickets and finding
Yeah.
some sponsors and
Yeah.
cracking some jokes. So that
You
is
know,
that is another form. But
yeah.
yes,
No,
Leon.
that just reminded me of something that our very first guest, Deborah Lisa Moore, who is a colleague of yours,
Yeah,
um, and she was saying, don't panic, don't go out there and feel like you have to put on a big show.
yeah,
Being an artist is also about introspection, is about
exactly.
self-reflection, is about
Yeah,
thinking more of yourself, and maybe you should be using this time to think more about what art is to you and what you are as an artist, which I thought was
exactly.
lovely. But on that
Yeah,
note, also, when you talk about discovering yourself, I want to go a little bit back to your personal
yeah,
journey. And because we're talking about change, and it is very crucial how we change. And I feel at this moment, with all these extraordinary gazettes and things coming out, that thing of how do we change? How do we create something positive? It's very much at the top of my mind. So I reached out to a very prominent fan of yours. And I said, I am interviewing Saumya next
yeah,
week. Do you have a question for him? And he did.
yeah,
So here it is. And it's Vimukti Jayasundara.
yeah.
And he wants to know, why is the acting teacher only teaching, sorry, and not acting? We miss him on stage and screen. So do you have an answer for Vimukti?
Yeah. No, this question is a very commonplace question that I confront all the time now. There are so many reasons behind that, Tracy. That, I mean, it's a very fair question. That's true, because most of my colleagues and the people that I have worked with, they want to see me on stage and on screen, but it doesn't depend on my own decisions.
Yeah.
You know, we have been discussing about the trade, the professionalism and profession and how we work in, etc., etc. And it is not, I mean, even though I'm still ready to perform, I'm still ready to work as an actor,
Uh,
but there are so
yeah,
many limitations and constrictions. I
yeah.
mean, limitation in the trade as well as in the creative industry. So even in terms of film industry, it's very limiting, and it is shrinking day by day. I
Oh,
mean,
that's not good
even
to hear.
today I went to a shop. Yeah, no, I mean, today I went to a shop and that guy recognized me and he asked me, "Oh, Saumya, so ඇයි මේ රඟපාන්න නැත්තේ? මේ අපි දැක්කේ නැහැනේ සහායන කාලෙකින්." So how can I
Mm,
answer to that question? Because he's asking why they can't see me. It is not a problem
okay.
of my own, own decisions. The film industry, because for instance I acted in a movie 2 years back. It is still there. I don't know when
Okay.
that film would be
Will be released.
screening. It has
Uh-huh.
been it has been maybe 3 years now. So
Okay.
it is not, I mean, it's a very complex problem as well, but yeah. And there's another reason behind that. As a teacher, actually, this is uh, this is related to mirror neuron. Theoretically,
Okay.
mirror,
Okay.
there's a theory called, I think you have heard this, the mirror neuron theory, where that now scientists have found that um, when we watch something or when we confront with someone else, our neurons are firing towards that person in our brains.
Right.
So it's a kind of firing. Even we don't need to do anything. Just looking at a person, fire, generate fire in our brain. So then the both, that's how we connect with human beings. That is
Yeah.
happening in the theater when we are
Yeah.
performing. That is what Aristotle coined as empathy. So, but it is not a new thing. But this neuron theory is coming from cognitive science. And so, what nowadays, as a teacher, I train actors and I see them performing on stage. That is a beautiful experience that one can, have. As a
Yes.
director, I know that when you are watching your actors performing on the stage, you would get that, uh, you know, uh, engagement, empathy with that, and
Yeah.
you have all the feelings with them. So every day, I enjoy that at the university as a teacher. So when I
Yes.
see students are performing, actually, I get the same feeling as I perform on stage.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
That satisfies me. That satisfies me as an actor.
I always wondered, Saumya, whether it was also that there's very few straight out academics. So, in addition, someone like you, in addition to being an amazing performer, I was also wondering if you feel a kind of responsibility um, to enhance the sort of academic learning of people in acting, because UVPA is the only one of its kind in the country. And I feel like in our industry as a whole, yes, there are a lot of educated people who know theory and stuff, but I feel like not enough of those people are sometimes in teaching positions. So I was wondering if that also had an influence on why you've kind of taken a step back. And I understand absolutely what you're saying when you
Yeah,
talk about
yeah,
the
yeah,
joy of watching your students
yeah.
perform.
That was my personal, personal connection.
Yeah.
But you have correctly identified the other reasons as well. As you mentioned, yeah, definitely, because most of the things that we do as academic at the university sphere, actually, uh, people can't see it, and it is very long-term investment as well.
Yes.
So we are
Yeah.
not showing. It's not a theater. So academic work is very much long term as well as concrete, and So as an academic, from my point of view, I would say that I have been working in the theater and theater academia in the university. And for instance, now I am working, even I am now working mainly with postgraduates, which is
Yes.
not very much relevant to common people. I mean,
Mm.
it is not very much relevant because they see me as an actor, and so when I am saying that I am supervising thesis of postgraduate, it's not very much that terminology is not very much familiar to common people.
Yes.
That's true. But the problem is, I mean, so as an academic, I have been working in the university sector for a long time now, 10, 15 years, and we have done a lot of things, and the result would be coming later sometimes,
It's a
and I
long
am
game.
is a long investment, and so I have developed lots of bilateral engagement with so many universities, international universities, and we have been working with those universities, America, Australia, as well as India and elsewhere. So we travel. Our students sometimes even last year we traveled to the USA for the first time with a group of students, dancers, and actors. For the first time, they went to America, not only America, abroad.
Yes.
So so I'm the one who done everything locally, but I had my partners back in the USA. So
Yeah.
that likewise, so we are trying to build up a community. It is not just
Yes.
my acting or my performance. So I'm trying to. That is my own. That is my vision. So I'm trying to build up a community. Uh,
Of course.
Theater
Support.
goers,
Yeah.
critics, and actors,
Mm.
dancers. Even I have been working with lots of dancers at the
Yeah.
university. No one
Hmm.
knows that. So I'm promoting. I'm educating a lot of dancers, contemporary dancers, because we have a
Okay.
program at the university. That is the only program in Sri Lanka which is sustaining, contemporary dancers, and we try to build up a curriculum. And the University of Denison in the USA, they are supporting us all the time. For the last 5 years, we have been
Uh-huh.
working with the Denison University to sustain this study program, and we have produced a lot of contemporary dancers. There are a few dancers who are now being very much exposed to international arena as well, and so they are not very much popular, but very academically very much valid. And
Right.
I have invited so many throughout these years. Actually, I have, with my capacity, I have invited many artists, internationally recognized artists and scholars, to my university and in that academic sphere, and created have I have created a place where students and these people can share their knowledge, etc. So
Yes.
for the last 2 years, 2018 and 19, just one moment,
Mm.
18 and 19, I actually chaired an international conference on theater and humanities interdisciplinary conference. So in that conference, even last year, I invited lots of people. Nearly 60 international participants came to our university and shared their research work and creative work with our community as well. So there are a lot of things happening in terms of research. So I'm very much into research as well, theater research and performance research. So I'm currently conducting a 3 years long performer training project funded by World Bank and Ministry of Higher Education.
That's
And
amazing.
yes,
I mean, that's
is
a
that
tremendous amount of work. No wonder you don't have time to act.
exactly? So I have very little time to explore
Yeah.
my own impersonations.
So how has COVID-19 and the lockdown and all that, how has that impacted learning at the university at the moment?
Yeah,
Did you have to send your students home? Are they still here? I mean, what happened?
no, the University Grants Commission, after government and the health ministry decided to, close all these governmental offices and schools
Yeah.
and universities. Pretty. vice chancellors decided to close all the universities. So academic activities and other activities, you know, are not functioning at the moment. For the last 2 months, actually, it was closed. But very recently, now we started working as a community, and first working at home, and now gradually we are trying to re-establish our mundane daily activities at the university, but it is not open for students yet. So,
Yes.
but yeah,
Sorry,
it
because
is
that's
not
going to
open
be
for.
very, yeah, it's going to be very
It,
difficult when you come to the practical classes, isn't it? I mean, what is
exactly.
socially distanced theater learning going to look like?
Yeah, that is one of the philosophical questions actually that now we all are confronting. Uh, very interesting point that you are raising
I
here,
mean, I can see
Tracy.
how it will work for mime or
Yeah,
something, but you know, if you're when you're rehearsing a play or something and you're there, and also I'm guessing it's going to affect your class sizes, isn't it? This whole 2 meter gap and all that. I mean,
yeah. No, it is
it's a
affecting I mean, terribly because University of Visual and Performing Arts and even in other universities, teaching is very much corporeal still. That doesn't mean that we are not integrating internet or you know online facilities to teach actors and directors and writers and dancers. We
mm,
do use all these materials even in our classes, but this intangibility, this confrontation, and the connection is the
yeah,
primal basis of
yes,
most of the teaching, not just theater or acting. I mean,
no,
teaching is
no,
happening when people are confronting. So now, even nowadays, I'm observing how my kids are learning at home. It is
hmm,
very sad to see that even though that we are, uh, we are very much, we glorify the fact that we have introduced this LMS and internet facilities, and now our kids are studying at home, and fantastic education, mode is happening. Actually, it's very sad to see that my kids are just passive learners, just in front of a camera, and the teacher
yeah.
asks to shut down all the cameras and the mics, and he or she is talking and talking just 1 hour.
I mean, we
And
haven't adapted to these circumstances, have we?
yeah, I mean, it is very much traditional than even the traditional classroom now.
Yeah.
It's very much traditional because even at least in a traditional classroom, you have interaction. Even our kids are losing that as well in front of
Yeah.
this.
I mean, it must be weird for you as a teacher also, because you did mention that you'd given a lecture online and
Exactly.
felt kind of weird when you didn't
Yeah,
have that
I
engagement.
had 25, nearly 25 postgraduate students actually, who are
Yeah.
who are teachers, and they are doing their postgraduate studies. So I had a component to teach the craft of drama, and only one teacher asked a question throughout that time. Just one teacher. The rest, they didn't ask a single question. They were just passive listeners, or even I don't know whether they were listening to me. Uh, but I was talking throughout the time. So that is the challenge. That
I
is
was
the
talking.
challenge.
I hope
Actually,
somebody listened.
exactly. So this pose another challenging problem related to theater, Tracy, as I believe. Theater has always been raising a lot of philosophical questions actually. Throughout the history. If you take you know any historical moment and see, you would see definitely how theater challenges, or how theater questions or raise questions related to human and human existence.
Yeah.
So nowadays we are also confronting these philosophical, larger than life questions amidst COVID pandemic, and political, social instabilities,
Yes.
and the power, how power works within ourselves as well as outside our bodies,
And then
trying to
also
disciplining
having to, yeah, I mean, what you're saying, there's all that kind of external stuff, and then trying to learn in an external environment in a way that you're not really, neither the teacher nor the student is 100% engaged. But in addition to that, dealing with your internal
yeah,
issues as well. I mean, we're all
yeah,
kind of grieving and shocked in our own way, and we still, I don't think, are coming to terms with really how all this has affected us.
yeah. As an actor, I think as an actor, it is very fascinating to think my or our role in this social uh, calamity, for instance, because um, acting, as I see, is a way of doing philosophy in another way, another word, if you like. Doing philosophy. Actor is a doer, and so it's a pragmatic way of practicing um, philosophy. So, in that
Yes.
sense, this COVID pandemic has created a kind of opportunity or the space for us to restructure or rethink about the ways we we should do our task. Or
Yes, yes.
you know,
Because I've been reading sort of comments from theatre directors and artistic directors and playwrights and stuff from around the world, and
yes,
there seems to be a very, very strong consensus that this is a time for a reset. We have to really look at how we are making theatre, what we're doing, and we have to go for a real reset. And so, in that frame of mind, um, I want to just ask you, looking at our industry, and I'm taking our industry as a whole. I don't want to kind of block it into Tamil theatre, English theatre, singular theatre, whatever. I mean, as a whole, if you could, what would you change about the way theatre works right now,
first
or
of all,
post, pre-COVID,
I
rather?
think it's a tough
Yeah.
question because with that question, I have to come up with a kind of solution, uh, which is still I don't have a solution for that at the moment. But my but the first thing that we should do is to um, restructure our way of thinking about theater
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
going back to our primal questions and explore those primal questions first. Uh, what do I mean by that? I mean the primal questions. There are some
Who
primary
are we? Why are
basic.
we here?
Exactly. I mean, theater always been there, and and exploring all these things. For instance, Grotowski, as I mentioned, he tried to tap into those levels, and again, Antonin Artaud, he was one of the very few theater directors and a kind of philosopher as well who try to tap those primal questions related to theater.
Yes.
And he
Yeah.
rejected this bourgeois theater as well, even at that time, because
Yeah.
uh, I mean, yeah, I'm not just rejecting theater as an industry. It should be functioning, and there are people depending on those professions, like other industries. Theater is also a kind of industry. It has
Yeah.
different genres, musical theater and comedy, whatever, light theater, entertainment. All these are these should be functioning as an industry. But as people who are seriously thinking about theater, uh, and at the same time the society, that's why we are discussing about all these things even in online means. We are trying to grapple with some of uh, the toughest questions that has
Yes.
been there for a while. That's
Yeah.
so. In that sense, what I see is maybe this group is very small. The people who are not really doing theater as a business, but as a way of exploring human life and engagement between people. We have a kind of responsibility at this time to rethink and restructure and develop different kind of theatrical practices
Mm,
and solutions. We need to find solutions. We need to find different ways of interpreting theater. In that
yes.
theater, it would be
Yeah.
happening somewhere else. We don't know. I mean, we sometimes we won't be able to do this theater in this particular, conventional proscenium march theater at Lionel Wint, but maybe
Yeah, I
some
think it's endangered now, isn't it? It's very much
exactly
endangered. I
in
mean, the
danger.
poor Lionel went. I've been
Exactly.
thinking about the went, because
Yeah,
with socially distant seating, and it has just over 600 seats, I think
exactly.
maybe you can get about 200 people in there. And that's going to be
Yeah,
disastrous, not just for the people putting the plays on, but for the Lionel went as a institution in itself. And just carrying on from that, now, I mean, the UVPA has the Pani Bharata,
yes,
and you rent it out. Sorry, I should explain that the Pani Bharata is the largest theatre space. It's a beautiful little theatre. I love it, actually. It's
yes.
such a
This is a
warm,
very
welcoming
intimate,
feeling.
nice. Yes,
Yes, I've done about 3 shows there now. So now the Pani Bharata, and not, I mean, what is going to happen to that theatre space? And doesn't it also mean that the university is losing a lot of additional revenue by not being able to sort of, rent that space out?
that's true, Tracy. It's something that we need to take into account and discuss because I'm not sure whether we would be able to rent that space out for public performances. Um, you know, I don't know when that would be possible with these limitations and measures imposed by by the government and other authorities.
I just wanted to
So
ask, has there been any support from the government? Now, when lockdown happened, there would have been a lot of students here, and you were saying that a lot of your students come from out of town, way, way out of town. So what happened to them, and has the government in any way supported them in this time of crisis?
yeah, actually, for the last 2 3 months. After this closure, and actually most of our students, because we provide accommodation facilities or hostels for female and male students as well, not for all, but um, most of them are staying at all these facilities, and so they after being after this COVID-19 closure. Actually, so all the students, they went to their home countries and home places. The thing is, actually, after a few months, the University Grants Commission and the Ministry of Higher Education in Sri Lanka, um, they have started exploring possibilities of re-establishing online teaching. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
in the university sector, actually, online teaching is not a very new thing in most of our universities, like University of Peradeniya, University of Colombo, and Moratuwa, and other universities in the periphery, like Batiklo,
Yeah.
Shefna. So they all use strong, internet facilities for the last 10, 15 years. And some of the courses and some of the teaching activities are being conducted through online means as well. But in terms of Saundarya Kala Vishwavidyalaya, or the Visual and Performing Arts University, we had established learning management system and Wi-Fi systems and all these infrastructure facilities. But there are some teaching activities in terms of dance and drama, acting. So we don't use online facilities to teach. Rather, we get together in studios and we work like in a
Mm-hmm.
kind of traditional way, but it's not
Yeah.
traditional way in terms of teaching drama, because
Yeah.
it is the proper way to teach drama,
It
because we
has to be a
need
collaborative experience.
experience. Yeah, it is a part of that learning process as well, vital part.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
now the problem is these activities cannot be done so far. So we try to contact our student bodies scattered around the country, and at the same time
Yeah.
trying to deliver some of our materials via online platforms. And to some extent, because we are doing some surveys at the moment as well, different faculties, different units that we have, the internet and providers. So we get together for the last 2 3 weeks. We had lots of discussions and conversations about what who are getting proper internet facilities in the periphery, and
Yeah.
who are not getting internet facilities, who are the people who are suffering at the moment amid this crisis. And there are a lot of problems, like financial, social, as well as even cultural problems
Yes,
attached
I'm
to
sure.
them. So we need to consider all these. We, we just can't say that we have established online teaching, and
Yes.
it is equivalent to all the students, etc. We can't say. There are people who are being directly marginalized because of this technology.
Yes, of course.
So, so we need to consider their concerns as well, because some people are not very much familiar with even technology as well. It is not their
Yes.
problem. Even some
No.
academics are not very much familiar with some of the technologies. So
Sure.
there are a lot of up and downs, and a lot of variations uh, in our sector. So we need to consider all
Yeah.
these. We
I
need
mean,
to consider.
it's not enough to say, "Oh, hurrah, we have online
No,
learning." There's
no, not
very
at all.
different problem solving to do as you go along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Now I'm bringing in. I got one more question, and then we're going to open it up to everyone else. So
yeah,
last week, our guest was Tusita Jayasundara, and for those of you who missed it, Tusita is a Sri Lankan born actor who is based in the United Kingdom. She's a very prominent stage and screen actor. And she said something that really got me thinking. And she said, theater doesn't get made by just sitting around and talking about it. You have to do, you have to get bodies in a space. You have to persevere with this idea of socially distanced theater. You have to come together, get those bodies together, and just experiment and see what happens. See how we evolve and how theater might evolve. Now, is that something you would encourage your students to do? And just from your imagination, what kind of theater do you think might evolve? So two very sort of uh, uh, just let your imagination take full reign on the second one. But
yeah.
just talk to me about encouraging your students as well.
Tracy, I fully agreed what you mentioned. Uh,
Yeah.
um, yes, theater is all about is doing. It is not just talking and or writing or directing, but it's a kind of doing thing with bodies moving here and there in the space. So that's true. But at the same time, Tracy, as you know, for the last 10, 15, 20 years, there's another genre. There was another genre emerging in the theater called intermedial theater. So intermedial theater, it is not very much now to talk the integration of technology in theater practice. But it has been
Mm,
there for a while. I mean, all the technologies, how all these technologies are being integrated into live theater practice. So what is the meaning of
yes.
liveness? What is the meaning of actors, lived experience? So all these vital questions are being explored in intermediate theater as well. So theater, in that sense, theater has been has been has been experimenting as well as uh, you know trying to um, trying to um, adapt itself to different type of socio-political transformations. So if you take this transformation 10 years 15 years back, so intermediality is one of the major components in contemporary theater, which means
Okay.
now uh, yes, you can question the notion
So
of
that's one way
bodies.
in which we might move forward.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. There are many
Yeah.
other, there might be so different ways of doing theater with the lessons that we have learned from the past, and at the same time, with 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 this new technology as well as uh, with our own bodies, we would definitely come up with a different mode of practice as well. If this is going to be continuing for another couple of years, definitely human beings would definitely
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
come up with another solution. But what I want to emphasize is intermediality is a not new thing to theater. It is there. It is a kind of established theater scholarship, and people, performers, scholars have been exploring the possibilities and the opportunities that is created within intermediate world, and how this
Okay.
the ephemerality, the idea of ephemerality, transient, and notion of engagement can be redefined through technology as well. Because
As long as it's
the question,
live. Yes.
exactly, the question that
Yeah.
we as theater practitioners, the question we have is, even for our theater goers, actually, they also having this key question whether theater would be like you know like live theater, whether that theater would be alive in the future,
Well,
because we cannot
it's if it isn't
engage.
live, it isn't theater.
Exactly. So that is,
Mm,
I mean, it is okay to ask that question, because
yeah.
theater means to us, theater means engagement, and engagement between bodies, nothing else. So how can you connect in this restricted world? So,
Yes.
so
That's the challenge.
we are being challenged all the time. So it's a time. Our bodies, in a way, our bodies are fragmented uh, in this current pandemic situation. Bodies are fragmented and departed. So so that is that is one of the primary questions that we are confronting at the moment. So
Okay.
this the wholeness, the feeling of wholeness and the unitary experience, and and the oneness of being in the theater is diminishing, because when you go to the theater,
One love, baby.
exactly,
Mm.
when you are in the theater, you are you are fascinated by this feeling of oneness. No, you are
Yes.
not just an individual. You are a part of the whole process. That is the marvel of theater. But now it is being challenged.
Okay.
This idea.
Mm,
So we need to find a way to
yes.
go back to that primal feeling again.
I'm going to use that, Saumya, to lead into this question. I don't know if you can see it. It's from Tilnika Jayasinghe, and she says, also, can online technology act as another layer to create a new genre of drama, which I think we've kind of dealt with
Definitely,
in the last 5
definitely, I think.
minutes or
Yes.
so, Klinika.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think based
Priyanka,
on our conversation just now.
definitely. I mean, it's a very, very interesting question, and it's very, very valid question as well. Thank you so much, because that's why I was talking with Tracy that internet, not only internet, 3D animation and other technologies are being integrated into theater practice by many experimental theater artists for the last 10, 15 years. And they have done so many groundbreaking works as well. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
so, so I mean, even the postmodern theater. If you read a little bit of postmodern theater, you would see a lot of theater groups in the UK as well as Europe and elsewhere. They have done a lot of fascinating work, and you know, through new technology as well.
Okay. And this is a question from Gimar Gunwardana. Is there a possibility that the UVPA will offer courses in theatre studies in the English medium
Very
at
interesting.
graduate or postgraduate
Yeah.
levels?
Thanks for that question as well. Yes, we are very much happy to transform some of our programs into English as well. Currently, actually, our undergraduate programs function in English, not in English language, but singular language. But we have already introduced lots of English text as well as English as a second kind of medium to teach theater and drama. So, and at the same time, it's a governmental policy as well as all the universities nowadays are trying to introduce English language programs as well. So, in another few years' time, definitely, even our vice chancellor nowadays, we are talking about this, trying to introduce few percentage of some of our programs in English as well. So it will
Right.
be happening
Okay.
gradually. And one thing I would like to mention is that related to this, for postgraduate programs, yes, absolutely, you can do in English, no problem. Even nowadays, we are doing. Uh, Now we have I mean, recently, one girl, an actor, came from Ukraine to study at my university, and she is reading an MPhil program in English. So, and there are many other theater
Right.
people who are reading their MPhil programs in English. So, if you prefer to do it in English, we can allow you to do it in English. No problem.
That's good news. That is wonderful news, Gimara. I hope that gives you some positive news. There's another question here from Lihan Mendis. How
Oh,
important is professional training in making it and creating a name for yourself as a performer?
it's a little uh, complex, Lihan. Professional training. I believe in professional training as well. But as a performer, actually, when I was learning, I didn't have that much professional training, because at the time we didn't have theater programs in universities, and so I had to find ways to learn. So basically, I learned as a on the job trainer by watching and observing other actors' works most of the time. But when I went
Okay.
abroad and started working, yeah, professional training is a must, and it will affect to your future.
Let's move on. Akri Amir
Yeah,
is asking, theatre and the arts is a major platform for free speech and exploration. How does your university deal or handle unions, ragging, and strikes, etc., while being mindful of its main task, that is of education?
yeah. For instance, in our university, in comparison to other universities, Tracy, I don't think that ragging and strikes are not that much prominent phenomena nowadays. You know, there's a conception in the society that when you say universities, ragging comes into your mind. But that is not a commonplace phenomena. There are here, there are things happening in universities, but it is not a major dominant activity in the university at the moment. Because for the last 10, nearly 10 years, many parties have taken a lot of measures to curb university ragging. But at the same time, it is not a problem of the university or the academia or the student bodies. It is a part of it's a problem generated through our society as well. So there are different phenomena, different connections to ragging as well as strike. So, for instance, if UVPA students are going to strike on a particular matter, it is not just about something that they are interested in, but there are problems related to political and social problems related to why students are going out to the university and do all these strikes. So it's a
A
broad.
lot of it is politically, is it's
Exactly.
political
So
manipulation,
some
isn't
are
it?
some are being politically manipulated. There are some truthful struggles happening. So
Absolutely.
there are a lot of variations. So when you use the word strike, you cannot identify all these variations with that particular you know word, because there
Yeah.
are very truthful struggles happening in the university sector. At the same time, there are some politically motivated things also happening. For instance, I'll tell you something, because this is very important. When during this war, um, in the morning I went to, when this war was taking place in the northern and eastern part of the country, and this brutal killing was happening. And I in the morning one day, I in the morning I went to the university. As soon as I entered the university, I saw a bunker on a on my left side, created by students, decorated by themselves. On one side there was a bunker created like a theater set that was done by the union in
Right.
favor of saluting Sri Lankan army.
Right.
On the
Wow.
other side, there was another structure for Buddhist monks to preach their you know religious uh, uh, spirit. So the one side a bunker, one side uh, a kind of stage for priests or monks to
Pray.
do their religious
Priest.
activities.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so this is how students work, you know. So it is also a kind of politically motivated activity that they have done. At the time, it was
Sure.
very much justifiable. It was justified by the society, because the war was happening against Tamil Tigers, and the students are supporting uh, the military. Then at the time, that student action was very much justifiable. So it was good. But it was very much problematic to me as a teacher when they are creating a bunker inside the university. But in general, universities are okay now. Ragging is not a big issue at all.
I think it's Soumya, it is because we hear these terrible stories of how these children are killed.
Yeah,
Um, Last
crazy
year,
problem is even in our society, not in the universities. Our societies, women are being harassed, and kids are being raped. It is not only universities. University is
yes,
a,
of
is a,
course,
is a kind of a part of this university, a part of this society. So
yes.
it's a social phenomena happening within the university.
Okay, we need to move on. There are just so many
Sure,
questions. Soumya,
sure.
and I think what you're talking about is actually leading into the next question, which is from Deshant Tennakon. Do you think there's a healthy dialogue between Sinhala Tamil and English theatre scripts in terms of contemporary translations being performed? Is that something we need to work on?
Um, I'm not sure, Deshan. I mean, there are some. there were some intercultural or inter-theater dialogues were happening
Mm.
between two theater forms or three languages in this country, like Sinhala theater, Tamil theater, and English theater. Time to time, there are some um, uh, interactions as well as overlappings happening between these two three streams, but it's not enough, I suppose. For instance, the Tamil theater, which is happening in northern and eastern part, even we know nothing about Tamil theater, honestly. But for instance, Parakamanirial, for instance, Single
Mm.
theater director, he has been tremendously,
Active.
working active in the northern and eastern part of the country with his mobile theater, and he has integrated a lot of Tamil speaking actors into his theater practice as well. And
Yeah.
so there are things happening, but that is not enough as well. Because we, as academics, we believe that we want to introduce Tamil theatre to our curriculum as well. So it's a very little component in our curriculum at the moment.
Yeah.
At the same time, I I I, I very often go to Swami Vipulananda Institute in Batikulo as well as in Jaffna. I have friends there in theatre
Mm.
departments, so we do a lot of curriculum revisions with them. I also see the same problem because when you go there, you don't see any such interactions happening. It's purely, very much confined to Tamil traditional theatre or Kutu or that kind of traditional theatre. So that kids are not being very much exposed to what is happening in English theatre or Sinhala theatre as well. So this bilateral engagement and the nourishment should be established.
Yes, but I mean, it's so often it's sometimes it just boils down to a question of money, isn't it? Or even when you're talking about
Exactly.
translations, sure you can have
Yeah.
a translation, but there's I mean such a you need a good translation. You don't just transfer the Sinhala into Tamil or the Tamil into English or whatever. You have to get the right what's the word I'm looking for? The idiom correctly, isn't
Yeah,
it? You have to get
it's
that
difficult because
expression
you are not
right.
just
Yeah.
translating the language, but it's the whole
Mm,
process, the culture and the idioms and the
yeah.
context and the history. That
I mean,
you have to encapsulate everything together. So, for
yes.
instance, I met one of the best translators in Tamil theatre. Uh, is a Kulande Shanmugalingam. He's
Hmm.
mainly working in Jaffna,
Yeah.
and he's very he doesn't like uh, honors, or he doesn't want to be a very popular man. He's very silent,
He's
very
a very wise and lovely
yeah,
man.
very introverted person, but he
Mm.
has I got to know that he has translated nearly 40 internationally recognized European and American plays into Tamil
Yeah.
uh, throughout his career. He was a very silent man. So translations are happening in that way because, as
Yes.
you said, it's very difficult job translating a play, and at the same time, it is a profession. I mean, again, the money. Are you going
Yes.
to pay for that person who is translating these texts as a
Hmm.
profession? Because
Yes.
nowadays it is not a profession. If you like, if you have some sort of a uh, interested towards a particular text, you take your time and you start translating something and write. But it is a profession, and then I cannot commission to someone and say just please translate this work
Yeah.
into Sinhala because at least you have to pay something for that person. It's a
Yeah.
very highly professional work.
And very skilled. It's very skilled work.
Exactly.
Um, right. We're moving on. Marlan Singha. Given the current political climate in Sri Lanka and in the US, what do you think of protesting as a performative action? like what
Yeah,
Hatha used to do
yeah,
with street
yeah,
theatre. What is your opinion about the role of theatre as a form of protest?
definitely. It is an integral part of theater, Marlon. That's what we discussed earlier as well. Um, uh, yes, theoretically, I can say that our lives are very much performative, and it is becoming more and more performative than ever before. And actually, I published a paper titled Corona as a Performative Pandemic a few years back. Even this Corona outbreak and what is happening around us, there are so many performativities around us. So our life uh, is a kind of performance as well. So this idea, theoretically, it was defined by many theater scholars 5 decades back. One of them is Professor Richard Schechner. If you read his works like performance studies or performance theory, you would find this idea of performativity and how our language is performative, how our lives are becoming more and more performative, and
Mm-hmm.
yes, this political demonstration is itself a performance. I fully agree.
Yeah.
And theater is again a performative work. It's a broader
Yes,
concept.
and it can be very subversive, and it is generally some form of protest, whether you're seeing it in a theater building or it's on the street or wherever. Um, and I think in terms of local writing, we need to engage with that idea of protest a little bit more. Which
Theater is a political tool. That's true.
yeah,
If you take many theater directors in the history of theater, they have done so many experimentation and so many works, assuming assuming that theater has a very powerful political uh, you know manipulation power. So
yeah,
theater is itself a kind of political tool, and but at the same time, you have to be very careful or cautious when you think about theater as a political um, demonstration or political tool. Because I would like to mention one thing. If you read Asian, especially Indian aestheticians, including Saint Bharata, and later there were many Sanskrit scholars who developed a lot of aesthetics related to theater. And these people actually didn't believe that, they suggest that if you replicate daily life on stage, it is not theater. That is what they say. you know so you have to be very careful when you say that theater is political or it is very demonstrative. Yes, it is, but why we are using theater? It's a different way of different mode of practice, and it is not just mere politics, or it is not just doing politics on stage. That's why I think I remember this notion uh, of Bharata and other aestheticians. So
yeah,
it's very interesting. They say if you copy this mundane life on stage, you are ruining the theater. So if you, I mean,
wow,
what is the point of copying this mundane life? Because we are experience this life in daily life. We experience it. So what is the use of or point of replicating the same life on the stage and see it again and again? Theater should be something else. So that is what we have to find. It is
yes,
political. It is very strong, but it is not just copying up our mundane life and replicating on the stage.
no,
It is different.
absolutely,
It is
yeah,
different than normal life.
yes.
That's why we need theater. That's why I think theater is surviving for 1,000 years.
Oh, we have Gloria Hewapatha here. In the Sri Lankan theatre scene, why does it seem like there's more demand and productions for replicates of famous English plays instead of originally written scripts? And why do our local stories always seem to circulate around the same topics? Are we still bound by fears of censorship? That's a fabulous question, Gloria. Thank you very much for
I think,
answering that.
I
I'm
think,
very
Tracy,
interested in the
you
answer.
can answer to this question better than me. I think it's a very
Uh-huh.
fabulous question. Yes.
Okay, I'll start. Are we still bound by fears of censorship? Absolutely, yes. And that censorship is there when it comes to topics ranging from anything from sexuality to the
Yeah.
war, to how you express your feelings about the war. Very much censorship is a thing. We have had plays censored and withdrawn in English and Sinhala theatre. I can't really comment about Tamil theatre. I'm sorry. Why is there a fascination for famous English plays? I am with you, Gloria. Why?
Yes.
I particularly
I'm
want
also
to
asking
know
that question. Why?
why we are
Yeah.
obsessed with these terribly, terribly tired old British
Yeah.
comedies, which are the
Exactly.
same. You know, it's a thing that Saumya was, if you were with us, Gloria, all the way, it's a thing that Saumya was talking about, this very bourgeois kind of theater where you go
Exactly.
there and you look at something just to kind of switch your mind off, which for us as a society emerging from an extended period of war, and you have no idea. I mean, I think, Gloria, if you're fairly young, you know, growing up with that for decades, you kind of do
Yes.
want some release. You do want some escape. But when that release and that escape becomes the dominant thing, and when, as artists, we don't address what is going on in our country, then we as theatre makers and as writers are at fault. I do think so. There's an onus on us to engage more with what is happening around us. Theatre is supposed to reflect what is happening around us, and we don't necessarily have to do that in a mundane way. There are so many different forms of theatre, whether
Yes.
it's surreal or you know, there are political musicals.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
subject matter uh, is a very important question. We are obsessed with those stories, Gloria. Those local writers that do write and who write about the same thing. I mean, if I can take Rajitha Dissanayaka as a example, I never miss anything he writes, and he's always writing about the
But
political
Tracy,
situation
but
in
Tracy
Sri Lanka
actually,
and reflecting that.
yeah. And
Yes, go
Tracy,
ahead.
there are, I mean, if you look at English theater
Yeah,
for the last 10, 15, 20 years, there are few groups. I don't want to mention group names at this moment, but there are few groups who have been trying to establish a different type of theater practice.
yeah,
Very few people,
very much
but
so.
they are doing a lot of original works, original thoughts, and original experimentations. So,
Yeah.
Gloria, please go and see those innovative approaches as well, who are dealing with lots of socio-political issues. Um, there are few
Yeah.
practitioners who are trying to get away from this bourgeois theater and try to do different things.
Um, yes, and I think Gloria, don't also, and not just Gloria, but everybody, try and look for theatre that is outside the main theatre buildings. Like, look for theatre that isn't happening
Yeah.
at the Tower Hall. Not to in any way disrespect those institutions or you know, the people who perform in them. But what I'm saying is, there are people, there are young people, there are people
Yeah.
experimenting all the time. It's just they are not in traditional theaters. So you need to keep an eye out. Not now, you know, it's going to take a while for us to kind of figure out what we're doing, but you do need to keep an eye out on unconventional spaces, and people are now doing them. Were pre-COVID, doing really interesting, wonderful things, and they need support, and we need to give them more publicity. We're having a wonderful conversation, Saumya, here. I hope you don't have dinner plans or anything,
No,
because
not,
we're
not
nearing
at
the
all.
2-hour mark and this conversation is not
No, I
closing.
mean,
So this,
it is
can
fantastic.
you see the latest comment?
Yeah, picking up on this, it seems that only Sinhala theatre, from my experience, seeks to engage in socio-political politics more than the English. Yet it
Oh,
is
you
sad
need
to
to
say
watch
that.
more English theatre. You
Yeah,
really do. I think you're talking, Gimara, about maybe 10 years ago. The English theatre landscape, again, like Samia said, there's not many of us, but there are, from the giants, if I can sort of take the conversation away from Samia for a moment, there are
yeah,
giants like Stage Light and Magic, Feroz Kamardeen, down to much, much smaller, tinier companies like my own that are engaging, and Ruanti Di Chiquera, all these
yeah,
people.
yeah,
We have been engaging with politics in this country. We have been collaborating with Sinhala theatre artists. And I think this whole thing of English theatre doesn't engage, that is a perspective from over a decade ago. And if and you need to maybe look at more English theatre, see for yourself, um, because I really sort of would dispute that comment. Again, like I'm saying, don't look for English theatre only at the Lionel Went. It is happening in many
it
other
is
places.
no, that's true. Because even in the university level, people are working on both languages as well nowadays.
Yes,
So
yes.
theatre is happening everywhere, and at the same time, I mean, the predominant English theatre practice is based on around Lionel theatre cultural sphere. Maybe,
Mm, yes,
but that
yes,
is not the
absolutely.
only theatre happening in this country. There are,
Yeah.
but there are many like Ruanti Chikera and Tracy
Mm.
and other theatre people who are very much, I mean, I have a very great feeling towards them as well as theatre
And
writers and directors. You have been
can I tell
engaging
you what
in
I love?
lots of politics. Yeah,
Yeah. What I love is the actors now, and more than actors, directors, everything working in both languages. The crossover artists, Pasan Ranavira, Bimsara Premaratna,
yes,
people like that who are really, because also there is this now this very old sort of train of thought that I think we have to put to bed a little bit. That English theatre somehow sort of patronizes Sinhala theatre. It's not the case at all. I think we all kind of acknowledge that in terms of quality and a level of professionalism, English theatre has some way to go to catch up in some aspects. But we are really seeing crossover artists put that argument to rest. And I think if we had more than that, um, it would really make our whole industry as a whole just a little bit more unified. Would you agree?
yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah. No,
Um,
so are
okay,
we going to
we're
wind up
nearly
or
done.
what?
Yes, we're
Yeah.
going to wind up, Saumya.
No, I'm not in
Um,
a hurry at all. This is a
okay.
fascinating conversation and
I
lots of
have to tell
insight.
you, I'm enjoying it too. This is really wonderful.
Great.
What I would love is if you did your reading for us right now, Saumya.
Ah, yes. Do you want me to read something or you want to?
I sure do.
Really?
Yeah.
Right,
What?
right. Yes. So then, as I mentioned, that I've got a couple of theater books with me because even because of this pandemic situation, I started reading again about Grotowski and about Arto. Arto has written a fascinated work on plague and theater as well. So
Yes.
Yeah. So because of that, I will read something from him.
Oh, that would
Um,
be very,
yeah.
very interesting to hear.
Yeah. So I changed my mind and I selected something else because
Okay.
rather than wasting time, uh,
We're not wasting time. We have all the time in the world. Next
yes,
week,
yes,
grab a drink and join us.
definitely. Oh, I could have done this before actually. Now, anyway,
I
I
think
did.
we'll have to give you detention. Do you give
Yeah.
detention at the UVPA?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
So this segment is coming from Grotowski,
Towards
Jesse
the potato.
Grotowski.
Yeah.
Yeah, small section.
Hmm.
The actor who undertakes an act of self penetration, who reveals himself and sacrifices the innermost part of himself, the most painful, that which is not intended for eyes of the world, must be able to manifest the least impulse. He must be able to express through sounds and movements whose impulses which waver, which waver on the borderline between dreams and reality. In short, he must be able to construct his own psychoanalytic language of sounds and gestures in the same way that a great poet creates his own language of words. Jerzy Grotowski, towards
Yes,
words.
although we have just renamed him Jerry. I'm just going to change that.
Yeah,
Um, Jersey. Thank you for that. I mean, he was very influential in my own sort of academic life as well. I found
yeah,
his work, his physical work, especially,
exactly. Yes,
absolutely
yeah.
inspiring.
He's one of the pioneering theater directors. Yeah, physical
Yes,
theater is uh, a kind of genre developed through his
his work.
ideas
Yeah,
of
no, he's
yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
a pioneer in that field. And you know, I just remembered, Saumya, just one more. It's not a question; it's just a comment to you. I
yeah.
work with a young actor who is absolutely um, sort of just obsessed with your physicality in ABBA. He
Yes,
shows it to me time and again, and he goes, "Just look at Saumya Liyanage in this." Um,
yeah.
so yes, I just wanted to tell you, you know, you've had such a huge impact on aspiring performers, and thank you very much for joining us today, for taking so much time. It's been 1 hour and 50 minutes, and I'm sorry if we have sort of intruded into your
Not at
evening
all.
plans.
Not
But
at all.
all the very best to you and your future efforts with the UVPA. And have a good
Thank you very
evening.
much, Tracy. Thank you so much. I had a wonderful time with you, with all the questions and insightful ideas that you shared with me. And Lihan, thank you so much for bringing me here and
Yes.
setting up all the infrastructure to have this
Shall I
wonderful
shall I
conversation.
let him out from behind the curtain to come and say
Yes,
hello? Say goodbye, rather.
yes,
Come and say goodbye.
yes, Lihan.
He's coming.
Aha. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Charming,
Yeah,
charming fashion statement there. Jeez. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for joining us. A
thank
reminder
you,
once again that
Tracy.
Feroz
Yeah,
Kamaruddin
we'll catch
is
up later.
joining us next week. Catch up later and take care. Stay safe, Saumya.
Have a
Bye
good
bye.
night. Bye.